And that's it. I was gonna send it to the survey.
I mean, it happened earlier. Just a normal.
Brought a pocket protector.
That is, yeah,
We had
I'm
an accident.
thinking
looking like a real accountant over there.
A lot of.
Oh, no.
Yes. Interesting way to start the day.
Wow. That sounds dramatic.
It was true. But you know, sometimes that happens.
Yes.
We're in the process.
Yeah.
She also was very nice, real life.
No,
Everybody experienced.
Hopefully.
I know, it's like.
Right, so, wow, okay. Are we ready to start? I mean, hey, if it works for getting free stuff.
And she says it's fine.
I'm gonna say something, but I.
Did Trevor
start
start?
this and then I'll send it
Is
on.
that good to go? All right, I'll
The
just.
auditors.
All right.
Okay. Since we're broadcasting, as far as I know, I'll call the meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. Anyone who wants to, say the Pledge of Allegiance can do so.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first order of business is to approval of the minutes from our regular meeting on February 15th, 2024.
So we'll
Barbara moves. Is there a second? Is there any discussion or any abstentions?
There's one correction that they have, on the first page under trustees absent. It's got George listed as a trustee.
Oh, yeah.
Thank
So I think Norina probably, I was absent.
That was mine.
Surprise, George.
Welcome. All right, with that correction, any further discussion or any other corrections? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the monthly business meeting minutes from February 15th, 2024, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? All right, passes at 6:03. And then we have the two special meeting minutes. We have the special meeting from February 26th, 2024. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
The only thing I see is just a name correction, Kevin Powell. There's just the V missing.
There's what?
The V is missing from his name, that's all. I noticed. Kevin Powell on page 3. One of the speakers,
Okay.
but
Is there a motion to approve the minutes from a special meeting? Okay. Barbara, is there a second? Bill. Okay, I will recuse from that, vote since I was not present at that meeting. So I'm not voting, but, all in favor of approving the minutes from the special meeting of February 26, 2024, please signify by saying aye. Anyone opposed? Any further abstentions? Okay. This is at 6:05. And there's another special meeting, February 28th, 2024. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the special meeting on February 28th, 2024?
Second.
Alicia. Okay, once again, I will abstain since I did not attend the meeting. So any further abstentions or any further discussion, any corrections? Hearing none. All in favor of approval of the minutes from the special meeting of February 28th, 2024, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Right, it passed. Okay, anyone for public input session?
I do. I have two pieces of public input to review. Stand so you can hear me a little better.
Great.
The first one is from Jeff Purley, Albany County Legislator from the 31st District, dated March 6th. To the Board of Directors, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I have been following with great interest the issues relating to the procurement and operation of the former Cafe Conmel within the property of the Gilderland Public Library. As one who visits and uses the library at least 4 or 5 times per week, I was excited to have a convenient food and beverage option within the library. Needless to say, I and others were frequently disappointed that the cafe was so often closed during the day. On those days when it was open, I enjoyed the food and appreciated the opportunity to buy my coffee from a local small business rather than national chains. The charges of racism on the part of library staff as the basis for the cafe closing are jarring and serious. As much time as I spend there, I cannot say that I have any knowledge or experience that would tend to support or disprove accusations of this type. I have often noted with great satisfaction and pride the diversity of library staff as accurately reflecting the demographics of our town. I've had a Gilderland Library card since I was 7 years old and cannot recall a single instance when any member of the staff was anything but helpful and professional. That said, because I was not privy to or familiar with the relationships and facts associated with the letting and operation of, I think it meant vetting, the vetting and operation of the cafe, it would not be responsible or appropriate to dismiss out of hand the various issues that have been raised in the media, on social media, and at 2 public forums you recently organized. Accordingly, I support your efforts to get to the bottom of the issues surrounding the cafe, including retaining outside investigatory experts, so that either appropriate disciplinary action can be taken, or alternately, so that the good name and valued reputation of the Gilderland Public Library can be restored and the public's trust regained. While the personal charges of racism leveled against library staff have, understandably, received the most attention, other issues of great interest and importance to the public have surfaced in association with this matter. As urged and prompted by the board in recent press statements, I myself have reviewed the proceedings leading to the awarding of the public contract to Cafe Conmel, as well as financial arrangements associated with the contracting and build out of the cafe and other recent improvements at the library. As is often the case, the published board minutes and agendas raise as many questions as they answer, particularly with regard to the question of whether public procurement requirements were adhered to, whether fair value was bargained for and received in a lease of public space, the relationships between the lessee and board members, and what issues, if any, arise from the payments made by the board to the lessee's husband for work that the board determined the library should do on behalf of the lessee's project. These are matters of interest and concern to the public, and as noted, they are not sufficiently answered or dealt with by referring the public to the library's website and archive of meeting minutes. Accordingly, I specifically request that these procurement and potential conflict questions also be referred to the retained outside investigatory resource for clarification, explanation, and fact gathering. Sincerely, Jeff Purley. And the second piece of public comment is from Andrew Genovese. The Cultivate Kindness section on the library's website is not only timely, but also inspirational for the library and the community. Maybe the library could amend its mission statement and focus all its efforts on cultivating kindness, such as the mission of the Guilderland Public Library is to cultivate kindness by providing delightful access to materials, programs, and services for all. And that's it.
Thank you. Is there anyone over? Anyone else wish to comment during our public input session number 1? Seeing no one, I think we can move on to personnel actions.
Yep, I just wanted to note, it's Marcia, I'm on by phone.
Hi, Marcia. Yes, Marcia.
Hi, Marcia.
Hi. Hi.
Personnel actions are to approve the appointment of Amy Dubry, full-time administrative assistant effective 3/6/24, and Trevor Grippo, full-time technology assistant effective 3/13/2024. To accept the retirement of Louis Warner, full-time maintenance department head in the maintenance department effective April 12th, 2024. To accept the resignations of Diane Bruins, part-time principal clerk for circulation and collection services effective 2024. Sarah Schmidt, full-time personnel administrator effective February 20th, 2024. Ibanez Carsley, full-time custodian to part-time custodian in the maintenance department effective March 11th, 2024. I didn't know what the date was not there with Diane Bruin, it was just 2024.
Got it. Let me look that up. Thank you.
Sure,
Sorry for that
that's okay.
missing piece of the puzzle here.
Sometime in 2024.
Yes. Let's see. Here it is. Okay, March 18th.
March, so Diane Bruin's.
Yep.
Resignation, March 18th.
Correct.
Okay, all right, with that correction, is there a motion to approve the personnel actions as so stated?
I have a question for Louis Warner. I think we've already approved his retirement. I think it's a date change.
It is a date change.
So we're approving the date change. I don't know if it matters, but I'm just calling that out, that we technically approved his retirement already. It's just that it moved up from May 28th to April 12th.
Does this have any impact on the retirement buyout package?
To my knowledge, no.
Statement here about the last person, the bonds, it says full-time custodian to part-time custodian. It says a resignation or
So he changed his status. And when we reviewed previous personnel actions, this is how it was reflected in the past when somebody changed their status from full-time to part-time. It's technically a resignation going into a new, I don't know, it's a little odd. But that's where we found it in the past. But he's still with us. He's just,
Can I add, just related to that, what's our current staffing in the maintenance department?
so we currently have 3 full-time workers and 1 part-time worker. And 1 full-time worker is on leave at this time.
And he is the one part-time, is this person.
Yeah, he moved from full-time to part-time. Yep.
Do I have a motion to approve?
Component to approve.
Well, we can do a motion to approve and then we can have a discussion. If you like. So is there a motion to approve the personnel actions?
I move to approve.
Leash, and is there a second? Bill. Okay, discussion? Any further discussion of the personnel actions? Anything?
I mean, I understand the retirement, the date change is sort of weird because of the retirement buyout incentive.
So
So it just, I mean, and I've read the protected email, it just feels a little unusual. But it's not affecting the package? Yeah, okay. Because the date was negotiated with the board.
But I thought that the way that was, and I haven't looked at it again, but I thought the way that the retirement incentive was framed was that they had to retire by that certain date, but it didn't. I thought it was like, that was an end, like date, and it had to be, I didn't think it was specifically on that date, but just said they had to submit their retirement prior to a certain date and then retire by a certain date.
Okay.
So, I mean, I
I
guess.
don't remember.
the rules of the incentive were that you had to announce by the 28th of February, which it met that requirement, that you had to retire without penalty. And we think that that's the case with this new date. And you had to retire before a certain date. I think it was May 28th was the last day.
Okay, I'm comfortable. I just. I had a question. Double check.
Yeah.
Anything further? All in favor of approving the personnel actions? Please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Passes at 6:17. Okay. George, you're on.
Thank you.
Treasurer's report.
So our 3-year-old grandson is staying with us tonight. My wife told him I had to go to the library, and his first question to me was whether or not I was going to story hour. I typically don't like to characterize my presentation as story hour, but if it is, it would be
Exciting.
non-fictional, exciting, very exciting. So we'll just look at the balance sheet quickly, and I think the only kind of big change was this line 1, cash and cash investments went down a little bit, and looking back to last month, it actually spiked up a little bit. It's usually not as high as 586, but there were some investments that had just matured and went to cash and then have subsequently been reinvested. And I think that's the only really significant change on the balance sheet. And I think that I often say that there's not a lot going on the income statement, and I think that there's more this time to talk about. If we look at the current if we look at the variances, and we talked about them Tuesday night at the Finance Committee meeting, salaries and wages are very much the reason for that is that we did have some buyouts that we know, and there's vacation payouts. And so most of that variance is attributable to that. And, you know, I looked back at salaries and wages, and when we looked at December, we were within $330 of budget, which is, you know, remarkable and everything. So, you know, we're attributing that variance to simply the buyouts, the fringe benefits and payroll taxes. Looking back to when we paid the New York State pension, it was higher than we expected, so that's unfavorable. Now, it struck me that there were a lot of unfavorable variances during the month, and we talked a little bit about it at the Finance Committee meeting. And there were some credit card charges that had accumulated and in payables, but they hadn't been reported. So we're picking up quite a bit of expenses because of that. And it wouldn't have any impact on the year to date. It just kind of skews the month a little bit. And I think the thing I wanted to kind of talk about was something that's coming up. So the tax levy we're showing as being exactly on budget. And when I present the financial statements, I always match the budget up to the actual that we've received so far. And the reason I do that is because we will receive the full tax levy. And the full tax levy was 4,276,000. So there will be another 257,000 coming in over the course of the year. There will be some small adjustments by town assessors, probably just rounding differences. Last year it was $604, and we put that on line 3. It's just so small that, but we do want to show the full tax levy. And then on line 2, we do show the refunds of the money that we have to pay back for the different cases, primarily about cross gates. And we did receive notice that we will be paying about $250,000 in terms of a settlement. And I think that Corey will probably talk about that more in the Finance Committee report. But that will show up on line 2. And we didn't budget for it per se on that line. But when the budget was put together last year, we did have a reserve amount of about $291,545 that was in the budget. And I think that we very much anticipated that there would be settlements this year. We didn't know how much they would be, but I have it budgeted for June, and we'll talk to the Finance Committee meeting. We could do something with that, but the fact is, we had enough in the budget that it will cover those refunds that have to be paid. So it's not going to have a negative impact on our financial statements because we do have that sort of set aside and everything. And just for reference, last year we had 108,127 in refunds. The year before we had 95,695. So we've paid in a couple $100,000 so far. This will bring it up to almost 450,000. But I think it was good that we anticipated that and reserved it so that we can cover that. And I think when we look at everything, we are running a little bit unfavorable year to date on line 28 from operations. Again, a lot of that's salary and the fringe benefits. Actually, it's, that almost accounts for that. We are fortunate that we're running very favorable on interest and investment income because we've taken a lot of steps to invest our funds, and so that's showing up there. And if there were unexpected expenditures that we had to pay for, if the board needed to do something, there's certainly enough cash to pay for that, and there's certainly enough in the budget because we're running $88,000 favorable to budget. And, I would not expect that to change with the fact that even with the refund that we have to pay, we do have that covered through the budget that was already set up. I think that's all I want to say about the income statement. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions? I probably should have, held it up like this as I did. I have to look at it.
There you go.
The investment report, it's best practice to, make a copy of the statement so that the board can see the actual, what we have invested, everything matches the balance sheet. And again, we've done a good job at managing the operating account and swinging it into the IntraFi account, which we're getting about 5.15% interest. We did turn over a couple of investments, reinvested them. They're a little bit less going out, but they're going out a little bit longer. And it's kind of interesting. I don't know what they call it, a reverse yield curve or something, but normally when you go out several years, the interest rate goes up. But I think that the expectation is that it's going to be dropping off eventually. So the longer you go out, the less it goes, but it does lock you into that rate. So very close to what we would have gotten on the intra-fi accounts, and it does sort of lock that rate in for through at least August on the two new investments. But that's it for that. The check register, we reviewed finance committee meeting. And, you know, I don't think there was anything terribly unusual on it at all.
I just have a few questions on the check register.
Okay.
Perhaps you don't know, but maybe you would know.
Like, yep,
What's the Davis Ballmer sprinkler amount?
I believe that was a burst pipe that had to be
Yeah,
repaired.
it was a pretty bad mess up in our sprinkler room that required parts to be made and everything, so it was a big fix.
I could probably answer that, so you do that. It's not to cut things off. but-
And the Erno Enterprises? You know what that is? Just don't remember seeing it before. Or maybe I did. I think it's
Is it on the back?
it's on the check register.
It's like,
It's
Oh, right there.
That's our plowing service.
plowing. That was for the winter?
Yes.
Okay. And then last one, what's Midwest Tape?
They're one of our vendors for materials, audiobooks and AV materials. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
I have a motion to approve the check register for March 2024.
No move, Cory.
Do I have a second?
And I'll save that other update for the finance committee report. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah, you can jump in.
So, you know, we've been going ever and ever on the resolution of our audited financial statements. And there was an accounting issue related to the project that there was a certain amount of uncertainty on how to account for it. And we've talked about it at the finance committee forever and ever, probably longer than it should have taken for any number of reasons. But I did have a conversation and probably.
Can we just take the vote, just?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I forgot. I got so excited about this. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're absolutely.
Is there any further discussion on the check register?
I just had a quick question, where there's like a check that's voided, like there's an amount paid and like void like immediately after. There's like 3 of them. And then I don't see it again, so does that mean like that payment didn't go anywhere? There's one at the top, electronic data payment
Go
system.
standing out.
It goes in and out, Amy Godey in and out, and then Staples Contract and Commercial, same thing in and out, but they don't appear later on at all, so that means they didn't.
I'm gonna have to follow up on that because that
Okay.
is interesting. I know that, you know, like way down the void printing error, I mean, it's like if checks just mess up and everything, that, you know, you have to void the check and everything. But that's a good question as to why it would have been in.
And then they
but
don't
not
have
ultimately
later.
been in.
Yeah, because I would have thought like, okay, maybe that was the wrong amount, it got voided, but then they got paid an amount later
Yeah.
or something.
I got a quick text from Jackie. She just says wrong cash account. I'm not sure exactly what she means by that.
Oh. So we'll follow up, but it's
Yeah.
possible that they did this, but there is an ACH account for certain things. They take it out of that account,
it'll
whereas
work
this is
out.
the operating account.
That's
So,
fine, I just
With
was,
Nate's explanation, that's probably it. I would say.
ultimately it cost us $0 for all 3 of them, so that's fine, so, yeah, no worries, I was there. I'm good.
One question on the aquarium, is that a monthly fee?
So we're catching up on invoices from them. They visit now and then to maintain the tank. And sometimes they send us invoices as a batch. So I think we are being billed monthly, but sometimes they don't send them right away, so we get a whole bunch and pay them.
I thought the foundation was paying for aquarium payments.
I think they were paying for part of it.
But I don't
They're
think
paying part of it.
all of it.
Oh, okay.
Any further questions?
Well,
about the check
Well, I
register?
did check, sign the checks and this was in it. I'm not sure if we should discuss it now or I should ask you something later about the Times, the New York Times. There's an issue. No? I want to look it up.
Sure.
I don't know if this is part of the checks, but it was in there.
Probably not for this check register, but. Let's see. Yeah, oh, okay.
Yeah, I would have to follow up on it. I'm not sure what's
Okay.
going on with this one.
Yeah, that's
Right.
right. Yeah.
Okay, so it's just a like heads up, this is coming. Okay.
So
I think we're good.
any further questions? Check register for March 2024. All in favor of approving the check register for March 2024, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, passes at 6:31. Okay. So, you had a.
So I spoke to the attorney that we retained to give us an opinion. The auditors wanted a legal opinion just to make sure. And I sent a confirmation. We've got to make a couple small changes, but I think that it will be favorable to us. She was very nice. All she does is public finance. I think we put out her resume before, but I think that she's very appreciative of all of the volunteers that serve in community organizations. And I know we went back and forth on what they were going to charge us before, but she's basically doing it as a professional courtesy to us because of, everything we do for the community. So I don't want to say it's done because I will jinx myself, but I think within the next few days, we should receive the final paperwork and be able to move it through the auditors and everything, which I wasn't sure I'd live to see that day.
Who's the attorney you were talking about?
Marky Damon, and the attorney is Connie Cahill. He's the managing partner for all the Barkley Damon. That's it. I won't say anything more.
Just a quick question. Have we been able to recruit somebody for the audit committee from the public?
No.
Still no?
Thank you for your report.
Thank you.
So now, now you're on.
My turn. All right, so February was an eventful month. We often say that during a director's report, but we really mean it today. So we have had several major projects underway, including work on our New York State annual report that we need to complete every year. And multiple departments needed to pull together a lot of data for us about our operations and collection and our budget, all sorts of things. A major cleanup project to improve the function of our payroll software, and budget preparation were a big focus in the administrative department, along with public relations work and prep for board meetings. We also worked on some personnel projects, including hiring our new admin assistant, Amy Debray. Thank you, Amy, for joining us. And a new IT worker, Trevor, and I think it's Draco, but I'm not positive. Draco. And two staff in February announced retirement plans as well. And transition planning is something we're definitely focused on right now, making sure that we collect institutional knowledge and plan for a shift in duties. There's some big important people are leaving, so we're collecting as much as we can from them before they go. I wanted to give a lot of kudos to our staff this month. They all did great work. Particular kudos goes to Tom Nucci, who single-handedly held down the fort in IT during a very, very busy time with lots of board meetings and with onboarding new staff, while our IT department head was on a nice break that he well deserved. And so thanks, Tom, for that. Luann Nicholson also deserves a round of applause for very hard work serving as a moderator, listener, and communicator recently. She's done great work as our public information officer. I'd also like to commend our service departments, PPS and CCS, for exemplifying values of openness to all, compassion and service by providing great support and kindness in person and over the phone and via email, of course, to community members and visitors during a very challenging time. And also big kudos to our library assistants and PPS who have been blowing people away with their awesome Excel spreadsheets and data crunching that they've been doing. That's really great to see. So thanks to Jacob Hardin and Peggy LaRusso for their hard work. They really made doing the annual report easier with what they did. In terms of our operations overall, our door counts in February were up by over 1,500 people in February of 2024 compared to 2023. So that reflects an overall steady upward trend that we're seeing in terms of usage since our building renovation wrapped up. We also saw a large jump, very large jump that made me give pause, but it is true. We saw this large jump in digital collection usage from this period last year. We saw around 2,500 more materials circulating in our Libby app as compared to a year ago. So big interest in ebooks this month for some reason. At some point, I know members of the board had asked for some reporting out on conferences that are attended in professional development. And I think that's a really important thing that we do. So I just want to report out that I attended an international library conference called Computers in Libraries. It's a yearly conference that's been going on for about 30 years now, focused on technology, digital literacy, and other cutting edge topics. The conference was very helpful. Because right now there's this huge topic in the world that people are just starting to understand how important it is, which is generative AI. I really encourage all of you to look into this topic because I would say it's going to be as transformational in our culture and society and libraries as the internet was. It's a exploding new technology. We are experimenting with it here. Some people hate it. Some people are into it, but everybody has an opinion about it. It's affecting school. It's affecting learning at all ages. It's affecting work in multiple sectors. So it's going to continue to take the world by storm. So this conference was very timely to attend because there was a lot of great discussion about AI. I also attended specifically the leadership track of this conference and was in the room with amazing people from all around the country and world who are heading up libraries 10, 15, 30 times the size of ours here, and got lots of great management advice. So I'm very appreciative of the opportunity to attend that conference. That was very helpful. So if anybody has questions about AI, I would be happy to field those because I've been studying it and playing with it because I know it's going to affect our work here. And I taught a class about it recently, so I have some knowledge about it. So touch in with me if you want a little briefing on that. Also of note in the area of professional development this month, many of our staff attended a very helpful UHLS sponsored training called KIND, but with a spine. I think we were the largest contingent by far to attend that one. And that covered the important topic of providing great service while maintaining healthy boundaries. Going through our kind of department reports, operational briefing. 14 of our CCS staff members attended the KIND with a spine training, and there were more in PPS as well, so it's well attended. Our active users this month, individuals placing holds, renewing items, checking out, were up by almost 800 individuals compared to the same month in 2023. So that shows a continued strong use of circulation services. For the IT department, our security camera vendor, ADNet, came for a site visit relating to the installation of a couple of extra security cameras. In the public services department, in late February, we became an official Silent Book Club site. So patrons can visit silentbook.club and find our library listed there. So it's an opportunity for folks to come in and kind of connect online and then come in here. Just another promotional opportunity. Our Love at First Line display was a huge hit. I don't know if any of you got a chance to check that out, but the books were wrapped in brown paper and patrons borrowed them solely based on their first line without knowing the title, author, or genre. And that display was wildly popular. So stuff went out like crazy. Patrons also engaged with some of our online resources outside of the norm. This month, Creative Bug, Ancestry, and Flipster usage were all up from average in February. For programs highlights, Megan Roosh continued a awesome guided art program for Guilderland patrons and a group of 9 adults from Wildwoods Without Walls program. That was very well received. We got a really nice thank you note from the group. Lots of great art was made. Community members connected with folks from the program. It was a really good program. We also had a local journalist, Donna Licori, who led a group of 10 writers through a 2-session writing workshop. And it was memoir type essays. That was really popular and meaningful for the folks who attended. For youth and family, we had tweens had a lot of fun playing games, listening to music, and making photo cards for their K-pop fandom night. It's amazing to me that K-pop Korean pop is so popular here, but it is. During spring break with the Dudley Observatory, they brought their Blow Up Star Lab planetarium for multiple sessions for grades K through 8, super popular and fun. Take Your Child to the Library Day happened in February. We had family board games, a favorite character scavenger hunt, and raffles, very popular. And then just an upcoming highlight, after many patron requests since the library reopened, Cookbook Club is officially back with a new name. So it's going to be called the Read It and Eat It Book Club, Cookbook Club. That's coming back. Last couple of reports from departments, public relations and community engagement. We had an influx of new likes and follows on our Facebook page in February. We had a lot of page impressions on both Facebook and Instagram, way up, 600% or something like that. Luann did a really great job moderating that because of course we had some intense comments coming in. So she made sure that comments fell in line with our social media policy and that people remained civil. And a post that we had on February 17th about museum passes was very popular. Got shared a lot. So that highlights how novel collections can spark interest and engagement. And then finally, for our admin, Natalie attended Advocacy Day. That's an annual day where folks from the library world converge on the Capitol and talk to all the elected leaders there and make sure that they know why libraries are important and what we're doing for our communities. Our annual report has a couple of I's to dot and T's to cross, and that is going to be happening very soon. Finishing that up. And I worked with our payroll software vendor on an overhaul of the paid time off function all through February. We have a lot of different tiers and complications in our contracts that required some extra work to make sure everything was working properly in there. And it is now, hurrah for that. And our staff all received notification of the changes that were made. So I'll continue to work with our union and staff to get any remaining issues in that software ironed out. And that's my full report. You can review all the details if you love data like I do, or you can just enjoy my report and be done with it. But it's all in there for you to peruse. All right, anybody have any?
I have a quick question. So is this effective at the end of February, or is this like, has the report been submitted yet? It's still.
So the annual report was submitted and it got kicked back with a couple of I think like tiny little things that we still have to change, but
Okay,
the vast bulk of it is done. It's just a few data points that have to be clarified.
okay.
Everything under the sun, circulation, financials, basically all of the requirements that we have from the state ed department that kind of govern how libraries function. Those things are cataloged in this report. So it's everything from programs, number of people through the doors, all our statistics, everything you see in this report. That kind of stuff.
By any chance?
The annual report, I think it is.
It should be. If
Yeah.
it's not, and I can also
So
send
the
out like a
states-
PDF to the board members too.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, any more questions for me? Thanks for all the reports. Thank you. All right, so then we move on to committee reports. First is building and grounds. Alicia?
So I apologize for not having typed up meeting minutes. I have been sick since Friday. This is actually the first time I've left my room. So I'll retroactively give notes to folks. I did make it through the meeting on Sunday somehow, but we were pending some information, so we tentatively have a recommendation that will probably need to be voted on later. But in dealing with the upcoming potential for the farmer's market, we had discussed that we would, and I forwarded to folks' emails, so I also don't have that contract printed out, but it's the contract from last year, so it'd be the same wording. We did discuss a couple changes with some advice from the lawyers and having a couple email back and forth with our insurance guy. But we did discuss, it was Mike, Tony, and myself. Vanessa wasn't able to make it. That we would really like to see the farmer's market this summer. In talking to Scott, he would want to start it in July, so it does give us time to get this approved at the next meeting potentially, but I'm just putting the information out. I am working with Nate to figure out having access to our bathrooms here because the porta potty solution was wildly unpopular with everybody because it sat across both parking lots, so it wasn't accessible and it was hot and gross was the feedback. So if we can have coverage for the weekends, which I know they're interviewing some maintenance folks, we would look at that being the solution so that people could get into a usable bathroom with better accessibility. The 2 points of discussion that would most likely be changed from the contract is there was a requirement for workers' comp, which Scott does not have employees. So it didn't seem to make sense. The lawyer said that the risk on that was super low. So removing it was fine. The other one was he was being asked to have commercial automobile insurance on the vendors' cars that are there, which looking into the pricing for that is annually $700 to $2,000 per car. I did ask the lawyer if it would mitigate some risk. Obviously, nothing can ever be eliminated. If he just requires proof of automobile insurance from each vendor, which Scott did agree he'd be happy to do in lieu of that, because it wouldn't make sense cost-wise to require him to do that. So those would be the only three changes would be the date shift and then removing those 2 insurance requirements. So just putting that out there because I don't have the updated wording. I don't think we could approve anything at this moment. So I was hoping to do that over the weekend. So I'll get something updated with some feedback from the lawyer to everybody to look over and hopefully get approved at the next meeting. I think that will still give Scott some time to gather vendors and get things. So I don't know if anybody had any questions or any
I have
information.
a question about the bathroom situation. I don't think you can just unlock the door and just let people in. I think you'd have to have somebody there. And the library is closed on Sundays. So you'd have to have somebody work on a day that the library is closed in order to have access to that bathroom.
That's what we had last year. Was the maintenance person that came and helped set up the tables was here the entire time. So people were able to come and use the bathroom last year and there wasn't any issues. They just can't access any of the other rooms. All the other rooms are locked. So they can come in this front door, go to the bathroom and out with everything else.
So you had somebody that was willing to be there.
Yep, yeah. So that's what I'm working with Nate on because we are a little thin in maintenance. So it is something that's gonna be discussed with the folks that they're interviewing. So we would have coverage here. And then I believe they did get a soft approval. I don't know, I'm running out of words that I know, but one of our maintenance staff is willing to come in on Sundays. Currently, so we already have somebody that's willing to do it, but in order to not have to go into like an overtime situation, we're gonna try to spread that out with the new potential staff that we might have by then, which hopefully we find someone in the next couple months. So I think that that issue's mitigated. And when we discussed that with the committee, was the contingency on the recommending we do the farmer's market this year was if we could get that bathroom coverage and if folks felt comfortable removing those 2 insurance requirements. He does have a very extensive policy which covers pretty much everything under the sun. So I don't think we're at a significant risk if we drop those 2 and if he requires the insurance from the vendors.
Was this the same contract that they used last year that
Yep.
we're updating? It had those provisions in it last year, but this year he's saying I don't want them.
We didn't apparently check the insurance policy to make sure that his policy had those coverages in it. And it was discovered when there was like 2 more farmers markets left for the season. And at that point, trying to get it was almost impossible because he at the time was also like on a medical leave, so he didn't even attend those 2 sessions. So we just said we would revisit it this next year. But Tim didn't check it until after the farmers market was already mostly done.
He's
Like
trying to
2.5
go by
months.
very good, except on the provisions and he's saying I don't want to do these, so thinks he way out.
Well, he looked into the pricing for it and he said that it would be cost prohibitive to have those coverages and still have the farmer's market here. So it was up to us to decide if there's an amount of risk we're comfortable with in order to continue to host the farmer's market here. But if we were to require that, specifically the auto, it's already pretty clear workers' comp doesn't make any sense with no employees. So the lawyer felt comfortable that dropping that one was not.
So this was the contract that we put in front of them. Is that what it is?
Yes, so we had gotten a list of insurances from our insurance guy, provider, I don't know, on things that we should look to have. I think the auto thing came up because we're in a parking lot was the concern. But even when we discussed it with the committee, it's just seemed odd because commercial auto insurance on every single vehicle, when mostly it's people's personal vehicles that don't go up in the upper lot, they're here. And we obviously don't require anybody who drives through our lot to have commercial auto insurance. It seemed excessive. So the happy medium was like, will you request just the personal auto coverages for a vendor in order for them to have a table here? And he said yes. So that's how we were trying to make it.
Are we talking about personal autos for the vendors or the trucks or carts that they use to cart in their merchandise if different?
So yeah, so the wording would be more or less amended to be instead of that insurance coverage coming from Scott, it would have to be provided by the vendor. So I keep saying their cars, but whatever coverages they have, most vendors are required to have their own insurance coverages for their vehicles or trailers or what food trucks or whatever. So I'd expect that if they're functioning, regularly, not just at this location, but other ones, that they would most likely have that coverage. But that's going to be the request, is that he solicit that from his vendors in order for them to be here vending. So that if any incidences were to occur, their insurance would be the one as like first point of contact.
Yeah. 2 things, and, to look into. One is if in fact the library could be an additional insured under that policy, which I probably is not going to happen. And the other is to look into a hold harmless with respect to the library. But this is just off the cuff from my, my thoughts right at the moment. I don't know if they're feasible, but I'd like to think about them.
I didn't hear the second one. A what?
It's called a hold harmless agreement.
Hold harmless.
Yeah.
I thought their language is in the contract, if I remember the contract. It had some language about holding the library harmless should anything happen. But
Oh, yeah, I
don't remember.
almost 100% we have that in there, but yeah, I think, yeah. Obviously, if you ask what coverages can we all have, you're gonna get the most extensive list, and then it's up for us to do some risk management or risk assessment on those, so. Yeah, so I'll look into the language and make sure that's in there. We seemed fine with the language that was in our last contract. It was written by our lawyer at the time, so I'm gonna run it by our new lawyer and then just update the language for everybody to have. So apologize, I don't have it for today, but I'll get
But
that updated.
if the vendors have commercial insurance, and I don't know if they do, but if they have commercial insurance, we might look into and ask our lawyers to look into naming the library as an additional insured.
I'm sure some might and some might not. Like I imagine if it's
Yeah.
like a single person doing crochet, they probably just have their normal car
They're all
insurance.
personal Yeah, okay.
But yeah, if it's like a food truck, I imagine they have something more extensive. But I can ask.
Thanks.
Anything else?
I just have a question.
Yeah.
I know we do this as a public service because people like it and we have the availability. But, the rent that we charge has been questioned by some people. Does it cover like the maintenance man, or will we have a maintenance individual here anyway?
So the way that I saw it at the time when we brought it up last year, and I continue to see it sort of that way, is they're really here for us because they're the ones helping us put out the table and stuff like that, because we're providing that used book sale, which is one of the most highly asked for things, and it's also giving us a platform to interact with our patrons. So that was really popular last year, with people being able to come up and talk to us, and then and this year it seems more important than ever. So to me, I'm seeing it as like a win-win, where it's giving our patrons who are also here the ability to use the facility, the upper facility for the bathroom, but also being able to, the staff is helping support us putting up our table so that we can continue to offer that service, because at the moment we still don't have the used book sales, and there's sort of this need to interface with the board more. So it seems like a no-brainer to me, but if anybody has any concerns, let me know. But that was sort of where I was coming from on that, as it is like another amenity, right, that we're providing, so.
Totally unrelated to, you mentioned the book sales. I noticed some bookshelves out in the corridor there. Are we sort of going back to one of the systems that we had in the past, where we had bookshelves out here, whereas patrons could come and, you know, pick out some used books and just drop the money off at the desks?
Yeah, and we had done a large weeding project, so we have a good stock right now. So that's why there's an increase in that number. We had some carts for a while and the cafe was collecting money, but for now, yeah, we're taking it at the circulation desk.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions on that before I get the contract reworded and all that stuff? That's it for building.
So, great. You have a lot of.
Are you
different
ready
things.
for me to just roll through them?
Sure.
The Long Range Planning Committee discussed through email that we were currently pausing the plan due to some larger things that were happening within the library. So we will reevaluate that soon and decide if we're going to gear back up to do our community and staff surveys. Questions, comments about long range planning? Okay. The Finance Committee, I included minutes. They didn't come until after the packet went out. We don't meet until the Tuesday before the board meetings for regular Finance Committee meetings. But they're included in here. George went through essentially what's on here in the first couple of areas, the February finances, the check register, the investments. Most of that George covered. And he also touched on the tax certiorari that we owe back that between $253,000 and $254,000. So George also touched on that. The audit piece, that is to conclude our audit, not just from last year, but from the year before. And we recognize that we need to get that complete for our financial folks here at the library. That needs to be closed before July 1st so that they can start their new accounting software. It only holds 2 years, or their accounting software only holds 2 years at a time. So we know we do have a sort of a drop dead date on that. So it's good that we hope to get that message from Connie before too long, so that we can proceed with that piece. There's a few notes here on the budget, not much right now. The Finance Committee also essentially serves as the Budget Committee, and we are meeting specifically to discuss the budget on Monday evening. We just received a first draft of the budget late afternoon today. So we're going to meet and go through that pass through. Just as a note for you all, because we're running tight on the budget timeframe and we want to approve this at the April meeting, we also don't want to present a budget that you have not had opportunity to discuss as a board collaboratively. So there is a good chance that we'll be asking for a special meeting in which to discuss the budget so that when we meet in April, we've already gone through all those things and we can approve it at that time. If anybody has any feedback on that idea, happy to hear it. It's me, Tony, and Mike on the committee. Obviously, George is in finance as well. some other business that was included is we will have an unexpected expense due to the investigation that the board approved that we're going to move forward on. And then there's a couple of other notes, but nothing incredibly pressing. So again, the committee is meeting on Monday. Anyone that wants to attend is welcome to attend the budget meeting on Monday evening, 5:30 here in this room. Otherwise, we will be getting more information out to folks. Questions on finance?
Do we know what line where we would pull from for the investigation, or what that would be?
Not at this point,
Line.
but it would be coming out of the current budget year. So but I think we need to get a better handle on the total cost and stuff. So I would do that.
Okay.
So it would be coming out of our fiscal year right now. So there is nothing in addition to that to report on the audit. Hopefully we'll have a report coming sometime soon. It's sort of, and my final report is on Upper Hudson Library System. So it's sort of business as usual. There has been some good news that's coming out of the state that's looking positive for state funding of libraries. So that's great. Keep the advocacy up. I noted that Nate noted that Natalie attended, and that is really, central to pushing those sorts of budgets forward, is having folks show up at the advocacy days, having people write letters to their legislatures, encouraging them to fund public libraries. So thanks, Natalie, for doing that. And if you feel so inclined, feel free to write your legislators and encourage them to fund public libraries. That's all my business.
Right, well, thank you. It's a lot. So anything from the policy committee, right now?
No, we didn't meet, and honestly, I didn't have time, but also I think 2 of our members are on the search committee, and they've been otherwise very much engaged in other business, so we did not meet this month.
Understood. Okay, anything from personnel, Mike?
Personnel and labor management did not meet this month. There is a open issue and personnel that we need to do is the management confidential contract negotiations. So I need to kind of touch base with Nate and figure out when we can get something scheduled for that, when when material will be ready for us to discuss and talk about. So that's coming, hopefully not too long, but things have been busy for everyone. So
Certainly have. Anything from board development, Barbara?
We have not met.
Okay, and
Before I move on, can I ask if anybody still needs to do their board training for the year? Because when is that due, by June?
Yep, 2:30.
Okay,
So just run on fiscal year.
calling it out, if you haven't done your 2 hours, hit up UHLS for some resources.
Is that an annual thing?
Yep.
And from what annual? What,
It's like a law, right?
January calendar or?
It's
July 1 to June 30th.
I forgot what the law is called, but
I think Jenna was keeping track of that. Is someone else keeping track of our hours?
We can start doing it. We saw a couple of things that Jenna was keeping track of. That's why I sent out the email, because she obviously left, so I wasn't sure if anybody else.
So we
But
can check
start.
with you to see.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
me and Alicia attended something this year, so I'm pretty sure we're.
If I have you
done,
guys do that,
but-
yeah.
Okay.
so if anyone's done anything and it wasn't on Natalie's email, just let her know so she can update it. So we just have a track of that. So that's it. That was not technically the committee, but I figured I'd ask.
And
We're
just
on
to piggyback on that, that is part of the annual report that we were talking about. And as of right now, I think half the board hasn't completed their training. And I heard back from Upper Hudson that we're not compliance now, because that was something on the annual report, but we don't know what that means, if, Dormitory Authority or Division of Library Development is going to do anything with that, but just know that we are out of compliance right now.
okay. Search committee, would we be deferring that to executive session to discuss search committees
Right?
findings?
Yeah, for the director. I'm the chair for it, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So Alicia, so would be deferring that discussion to executive session?
Think so.
Yeah. It's a matter of some confidential things I think that we'd have to talk about. Okay. So that brings us to old business, which is discussion of next steps in investigating recent claims and to consider recent community feedback.
Are we gonna be discussing the vendor? Cause I think I have to recuse myself from selection of this based on the lawyer's recommendation. So it doesn't, as I will be investigated. I should not have, I not be able to vote or know more than anyone else who would be investigated. So, is that where we're discussing this? I just want to ask because I might have to step out for that.
I think. Probably.
Yeah.
I'll text you when we're done.
That is, yes,
So
so,
she have to, she just can't vote.
Oh.
but I was told I can't know any additional information. I don't know, I guess. Public.
So
I guess I
this
would know.
piece of it, I think that you are okay because it's public. But as we go through in the next piece, selecting an investigator and all that stuff, you should.
That's fine, okay.
I would
So
think you-
wherever I need to step out, just let me know. I did have, I don't, that's why I wanted to make sure.
Yeah. So is this the investigation of the contract with Cafe Cone Mel, or is this and those questions that have popped up, or is this referring to the investigation that we are contracted?
This looks like both.
I think
Is it
it's
just-
both,
This is.
and I think she
Yeah.
probably should step out for.
Yeah,
both.
okay. I thought it was just the first.
We might be investigated too.
Out of
Well,
abundance
It's
of.
not investigated, it's you're gonna be questioned, you're
Yeah,
gonna be
and you will
interviewed
be.
as part of it.
Yeah, but this is all public meeting,
Yeah.
but so I don't think anybody needs to step out because.
I just won't
was
vote.
watching the
I
video.
won't vote.
You probably shouldn't vocalize your thoughts or vote,
Like, that's not,
you know.
okay.
So, obviously I wasn't at the special meeting, so I'm a little bit of a disadvantage here, but, I know that, we had been, there were a number of firms that were interested in that the attorney had, our library attorney had passed those along. I wasn't sure what we intended to do this evening. I mean, because I know that there was a lot of public feedback. I don't know, if there was anything in addition to the Facebook post?
So we
Yeah.
wanted to vote on a vendor, select a vendor today so that they can start the investigation. So that's what I think we need to discuss. And if people reviewed the 4 different proposals, if anybody has any discussion on those vendors that are willing and able to do this investigation and.
So,
And if I can just, I think just to sum up and people can correct or add if this isn't right, but I think what we had discussed before, there were kind of 2 separate types of issues. There is the allegations made by the cafe in relation to the Facebook post and everything that kind of caused everything to blow up. And that was the issue that we had decided that we wanted to get an outside investigation to come in and explore all of the allegations made by the cafe. And then there were a second kind of set of concerns raised by people in the public comment, and this has also come up. I think there's a FOIL request about this that are related to the contracting process, how the cafe was selected, that kind of thing. And I think the discussion was that at least initially to do an internal for cost saving purposes and things like that, to do that internally rather than contracting outside. So I think those are the 2 separate pieces as I understand it. So I think that the idea would be that we have some proposals for vendors for part 1 that we need to talk about and try and see if we can pick a vendor and get that moving, and then figure out what we're doing on part 2, like what's our plan or how we're going to go forward with that. That's my understanding, but anybody.
Yeah, that's mine as well.
Just as for, like, since I can't discuss it, but I will throw out a prompt only because before Kathy came back, I had extensive discussions with the lawyers as well. So I will just add a secondary piece based on what they told me would happen if we contract an HR firm they will not deduce anything. They will just pull up a bunch of facts and have that in a report. So if we want to address any gaps in our policies or have anybody review our DEI policies or anything regarding discrimination or harassment or something like that, that might be a secondary vendor for that first part of the investigation. So just a heads up, because an HR firm can maybe handle two pieces, but what we've asked for pricing wise is just the investigation part. So I don't know if we want to just keep in mind that there might be a secondary part that's not just part of the report. But if somebody wants to objectively check our policies and offer recommendations for how we can shore those up, so moving forward, we don't run into the same pitfalls. I do have a vendor that I found locally that does have the identity alignment that we were looking for. So I can throw that name out there, but we don't have a quote from them or anything like that. So we couldn't pick that today, but it might be something we're discussing later. Because the first and foremost, is that investigation anyway, but just something that's keep in mind. And I just wanted to throw that out there.
I would want to have the investigation done before, before that we decide what we need.
I think it's
Yep.
premature to go to
Yeah, and I
that
also
before we.
want to say, I did talk to the lawyer, and in terms of picking the vendor, we can do it, but then regarding the scope of what we want the vendor to do, there's different ways of approaching it. And I think in the packages it discussed from the different vendors, if we want to go through the attorney and have an option to have stuff confidential as opposed to just the findings, or just giving them the entire report. So that's something that we can consider after we pick the vendor.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
We
I'm
can
fine.
discuss the scope with the attorney.
Yeah. So I just thought I'd throw that out there because it was a gap that we identified in discussing what type of vendor we needed and what would be provided and what the public's asking for.
But I think it
So,
depends on the findings
Mhm.
too.
Yep. Yeah, and that's fine too. I just wanted to throw that out there that it may not be as something we had considered before, so.
So do we just go through the board that we were given?
I just have a question. Is Erin gonna be on screen or not?
No,
She's
she's
not
not gonna be
here.
available. I sent an email out that she said she's not unless we want her to be. And nobody's vocalized that they want her to be
Oh,
present
okay.
for this.
And then I have another question, because I can't find what I was looking for. Marcia,
Yes, I'm here.
what's the name of the person that you found that's local?
Hers is
Whose
the-
resume impressed me a lot, but now I can't find it.
You support it.
Well, there's a proposal from Tom Capezza, who is a local, and he's one of the four. And we had obviously two different people from Bond, Shenik, and King, which is another proposal. The guy I had recommended from Bond, Shenik, and King has been enfolded in the general Bond, Shenik, and King proposal. His name is Hermes Fernandez, who I know very well.
Yeah, he's one of the three people at Von Shenik that was in the packet.
That's right, yeah. Now, I got I've been otherwise engaged. I'm at the hospital right now. My son is quite ill, so, excuse me, what? I'm sorry? Okay, not the other snow. Close the door, please. Okay. I got a text from someone I had asked to look to see if he was interested in doing an investigation. It's Randy Treese. He's a lawyer in Albany who I went to law school with. And he's retired, and he said that he personally would not do it. But he sent me a voicemail this morning asking if the process was closed. I said it was not, but if you had someone in mind, he is of counsel to E. Stewart Jones, a very well-known local law firm. I've not
Is he-
received anything.
The former
You have to
judge?
make- Yeah, he's a classmate of mine. He's a former judge.
Yes,
And he
okay.
also is someone that one of the, in the proposal clerked for, actually, in the Tom Capezza proposal. Randy's an old friend, law school friend, but I haven't gotten anything from him, so I just wanted to put that out there. If we couldn't reach a conclusion tonight, I could get back to him. But I apologize, I've just been otherwise engaged. I did leave him a message that if he wanted to send something in, we might or might not look at it.
And I'm not sure how much of this you got from Erin's report to us, but some people that she had reached out to had initially expressed interest, but then backed out because
Yeah.
of just concerns with the publicity and also with the fact that they weren't comfortable with the entire report being publicized, which is why I'm saying when we decide whether or not we publish the entire report or whether we just publish the findings, that's something to consider because some people backed out because they don't want the whole report.
Yeah, that's going to be an issue for us certainly. And I contacted 4 or 5 other people. They, for one reason or another, that wasn't the issue. They just couldn't do it. So, but that's a decision we're going to have to make. Whether whomever we hire.
Yeah, I think the 4 that we got are fine with it. So we have 4 proposals that would work and they're comfortable with that level of transparency.
Yeah.
So
I was just wondering like how much we would want to spend on this. Obviously I wasn't in a special meeting, so I don't know, how, of what great importance this is taken on, but, some of these proposals, they would cost as much as $16,000. That's a lot to investigate a Facebook post. So, and I don't know if there's been anything in addition to that, other than an allegation contained in a Facebook post.
Well, I think the public comment that we got was substantial in saying that they want to investigate and they want to investigate quickly and they want answers right away, whether they say there's any need to the allegations or whether they say there's nothing there. The public expressed in 2 of both special meetings that they really want to know what went on. And we voted to
And we
hire.
already approved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another allied issue is
But, that's, like I said, I wasn't there, so,
It needs to be done. I was there for all of it. It needs to be done.
all right, so, does the board have a preference on these? Because they seem different but similar,
I would just say unless there's some strong reason otherwise, I would lean toward one of the 2 that are local. Just because I don't see a need to be paying travel time for someone to come up from downstate or from New York City. And it seems like there'd be more flexibility for them to interview and meet with people if they're local in here. And so unless there's a strong reason otherwise, I would lean toward one of the 2 local options.
Do we have
What
3
do you
local?
like, Capeza and
It's Capeza and the bond Shannon.
Oh, but those are both attorneys. We also have a local proposal from an HR company,
Oh, which one is that?
public sector HR,
Oh, well, there.
Ronnie Travers.
Is that local? I thought that was,
Oh, it says Rhinebeck, but I think their office is in Schenectady.
they have a local office. Sorry.
the public
I
sector
thought
consultant.
It listed, because
Yeah,
it talked about travel from.
it does say travel from Rhinebeck,
Yeah,
but
which isn't as far as New York, but it's still, it's not as convenient as someone who's right in town.
So are you suggesting Guideposts out because they're not local? Because I really like them.
I would lean
So,
one of the local ones,
I'm sorry.
but
I lean more towards an HR company than another attorney, but that's just because I think that that's what we're dealing with. Either public sector or this, what's Guidepost.
I guess I'm leaning towards Capeza, who has a strong legal background, has done many of these investigations apparently, and is local. And because we're a public entity, he has supposedly discounted the charges and is estimating about 6,000 versus 16,000.
Oh, no, his estimate goes up on the next page.
yeah.
Yeah, it's 16.
It's 16.
6,000 is just the interview cost and then there's additional, there's the
And I
cost for the report.
think everybody mentioned that they discounted the cost because we're a nonprofit except for Guidepost. Or maybe public sector HR did not, but their rates are significantly lower. But I think Bond should think that they did.
Yeah.
They said they blended it. I'm not sure that-
I didn't see in the public sector HR that there was an attorney in that firm. Did I miss
There's
something?
not, it's an HR company.
Yeah, I would prefer myself to have an attorney dealing with this. I'm sorry for the noise. My preference is to have an attorney do the investigation.
I mean,
Hello?
this gentleman, Capezza, I don't know him at all, but, you know, he's managed civil litigation. He's guided more than 4,500 sworn officers and provide legal and ethical guidance. His background is just stunning. And as I said, he's local and he is ready to go apparently and get this thing investigated so that our public knows one way or the other if there was any truth to the Facebook post. And that's, you know, the second Facebook post basically sort of changed the whole tenor and said that it was an individual that's on staff that did some things with equipment, and that isn't racial harassment as was claimed, and the staff was never mentioned again. So, I mean, we need to clear or find out what actually happened, and the sooner the better. And if somebody is willing to go and as I said, has an unbelievable background, legal background, and is now concentrated in this area of investigation. I certainly would go with the person like that.
I know I can't wait, Ed, but can I clarify how you think you published it? Okay. It was just a correcting a financial.
Oh, well then correct it.
Yeah, okay. So for Guidepost, they said that the cap for their investigation was 15,000. So I'm sure they are also factoring in travel with that. They're not.
That's not counting.
That doesn't count travel. Okay, that's all. I will not give.
Just for full disclosure, I don't know Tom personally. He was recommended by a former partner of mine when I was in practice. They were both in the U.S. Attorney's Office, and he came very highly recommended by Rick Hartunian, who was my former law partner.
I guess the basic question that I need to have answered in my mind, to me, this is a legal question. And an HR person, you know, is trained in HR and contracts and health benefits and things such as that, but why would we have an HR person versus a legal expert investigate these claims of harassment, you know, racial harassment, both from patrons and from staff supposedly? I'm a little confused why we would have HR versus a legal person that.
Well, just a reminder that the reason our second statement did not come out as a joint statement was because some of the staff is still alleging that they feel that there was racial motivations for their harassment and would come out publicly more so if that was the case. So I think there is still a question of that, despite what some of the clarification of the statement came out. The staff is still very much.
But wouldn't that
You
be
mean
investigated by a
There's
legal person?
No staff.
So I don't think we can avoid that. I don't think it's a contract thing. That would be part of the second investigation, not the first.
So, no, the first one has to investigate the most egregious claim of racial harassment, which is just tainted the entire town that, you know, were those kinds of people. And the people that came to our meeting said, you know, let's get this resolved because, you know, this has not been our experience, but maybe it happened. And we don't want it ever to happen again. So
So human resources departments, all, like consulting firms do this kind of investigation as well. That is not uncommon. Like that's a normal thing to happen from HR professionals in certain arenas. So that's why even Erin was the one that sent along these two HR things, our own attorney, and she had mentioned that in the last meeting. It is very common for them to do it, and it is because of the type of report and what they share that comes out of from an attorney versus an HR person. And so it's anything that's going to come out of one of the HR folks is going to be fully shareable. It's going to be a report of the findings. It's not going to be, doesn't need to be protected by attorney-client privilege. It's going to be an open report with the facts and the findings. The lawyers are going to do more, a very intense, like look at the legality of things. Like, so I don't know exactly what we want. Like, I would rather somebody, I'm not as concerned about the legality of things. I would rather somebody investigate like internal practices, what created this, like all that kind of stuff.
Well, I actually think we would be concerned with, well, at least I am concerned with both, what's going on in the library, but also with the legality of it. Because the reality is there is some litigation out there about it, so we do want.
But you don't think that would be
and
our
prevent
own
it.
attorneys that would take care of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
This
okay.
wouldn't be them, but with a legal focus, they would be looking at what it is that we might have been doing wrong that would have exposed us to litigation. And also because she said, racial, I should say discrimination, I think she said, which, you know, they're legal terms and we know that she might sue. So I think it's important that an attorney look at it because they know the implications of that. And they also know what staff should not be doing because there's laws against that. So if that did occur, then they're aware of that. I just feel like an attorney should be involved. But if the HR company has an attorney on board, I'm okay with that too. I just think there should be some legal aspect to looking at.
well, Marina, the other thing that Erin told us is that it's up to the board as to how complete a report we want.
Yes.
And that when we hired the individual, we basically tell him or her what type of report. She said that you could be in general or that you could be specific. We interviewed Mr. Smith. We interviewed Mary Jane. You could redact the names if you wanted to, you know, to protect those individuals so that they weren't tainted in some way or other. The proviso was that, you know, maybe you can redact the name, but from the circumstances, perhaps some people could still figure out who that individual was. But in any case, I am definitely leaning towards legal representation. I think this is so critical that we need some really good guidance and some independence and somebody that can wrap this up and give us a report, be it bad or good, you know.
Which is what I said, we have to ultimately decide what the scope of this representation is. I don't know if we have to decide that before we pick the people or after we pick the people.
Well, I guess we have to give, you know, their instructions on what we're looking for. I think, you know, I think there are definitely, there's legal aspects to this, you know, but there's also broader than that.
Yeah.
Because there could be, for example, there could be, you know, just, you know, for example, if there were actions by staff, library staff, that do not meet the, you know, standard of being legally actionable harassment of the vendor, you know, but are indicative of, you know, of kind of
Yeah, no policy.
gaps in our policies or just a, what's that?
Bad behavior.
Yeah, bad behavior, or just like a kind of a, you know, you call it toxic, you know, environment or whatever, where the vendor was dealing with kind of, you know, difficulties or problems or obstacles that are not, you know, legally actionable, but are, you know, something we should, you know, want to put an end to or want to get to the bottom of or want to, you know, whatever it ends up being. So, you know, that would not be a, you know, if our goal here is to, let's see what happened, let's get the facts, find out what actually did happen as best we can
The
figure it out.
library is closing.
And then
in
figure
30
out,
minutes.
what
Our
needs to be
public
done on the
computers
basis
will
of
shut
that.
down
That makes it
approximately
beyond,
15 minutes.
just purely legal, just,
If you need to
it's
get a
not just,
library
well,
card,
we didn't do
please
anything
go to the
illegal, so
checkout
everything's
desk.
fine. It's,
Thank
well,
you.
what's the whole situation? Where are all the facts and are there things we need to try and fix going forward?
Yeah, I don't
But,
disagree.
but I
with
think that,
anything.
I don't think that's, that necessarily answers the question of what type of, because I think a law firm that's dealt with, various employment, matters and investigations could equal, could also potentially provide the report that, goes beyond just the pure legal liability issues.
I think the
But-
second thing that you mentioned is that in a sense, there's two parts, because since this happened, public people have testified that perhaps processes that should have been followed to get the vendor were not followed.
Yeah, but
And
I-
that
I-
subsequently,
yeah,
and then subsequently, other things were done, contract wise or whatever. So do we want to merge the two investigations or do one maybe internally? I don't know, you could do that one internally or not. But at least get this other one started in the ball
And
rolling.
that's what that was what we voted on at the last meeting, yeah. Was getting the one dealing with the complaint going with the outside source.
So how are we going to decide which vendor we're going to pick?
Anybody we
Of
could
the
just take
four.
off, we have 4. Is there anyone we can take off right away, though? We don't want to do the HR from New York, right? That's
Just,
right.
just to note, they do have a lawyer. They have 2 lawyers.
Yeah,
on
they have 3 on guideposts, I think.
Yeah, so I just wanted to
If we don't want
point
to deal
that
with New
out.
York, can we at least take one of them off the table right now?
I mean, but their price was comparable to the other one.
But then when we factor in travel, do we think it's gonna push it higher though? We just to get this moving, that's all I mean. Like,
Yeah.
we have 4. Is there any of them we can agree on taking off? Or at least most of us can agree on.
No, I liked Guidepost.
I
They
really
were
like
number one, but
Or, okay.
Is there anyone that presents a conflict of interest based on how they were referred? Oh, sorry.
Just trying to protect you.
No, it's okay. Sorry.
Maybe everybody needs to just.
Yeah.
It might just be helpful to go.
That's okay.
Sorry, I will text you.
I have like a knee jerk, like, I just
I
want to
know.
clarify. That's okay.
You can watch it later.
Yeah.
Just text me.
This is Martha. I don't think Elise for our own protection, Elise should have any part in making a choice here.
Yeah, so that's why she's stepping
She's
out. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I can't see you, so I didn't hear. Okay.
So which one did we take off the table, the first one?
I don't think we did yet.
no, not yet. But
So
All
if
four still
if
on the
there's a
table.
concern about having legal representation on the team, public sector HR does not have that.
Then we take off Ronnie Travers.
Ronnie and Travers can go,
That's just HR, right?
just straight up HR.
Good. So now down 3.
Well, I think we can eliminate New York City firms.
No,
no.
that
I
was
really
Guidepost.
like them.
That's the one, yeah, Narita likes.
Which one do you really like?
Guidepost. I like their experience. I like the.
Their
the
experience is
management.
amazing,
They had
like
the
this.
people, They had attorneys on staff. The budget was 50,000 to start. I mean, to me.
They're like-
I ranked them. They were my number 1.
Their relevant project experience is really great, but
Their proposal is less than $15,000, but does not include travel and other kinds of expenses outside the 15,000. Am I correct?
I want to know what they're gonna bill us hourly for travel time. It's one thing to pay for their Amtrak, but I want to know what their hourly travel rate is, because that will have an impact. Because we're not gonna pay like $300 an hour for the 2.5-hour train ride.
That's really incremental, I see.
I mean, if we're expecting to make a decision today, then you probably cross them out, but then we need to go back to the attorney and have them ask more stuff.
Well, that depends on also if we're going through the attorney or not. If we're dealing directly with the company or if we're going through our local attorney, which is a whole separate thing, but we also have to decide that.
They say they will bill actual out-of-pocket costs and disbursements and data search will be billed at cost. We anticipate minimal travel expenses, primarily consisting of travel between New York City and Albany via Amtrak to conduct in-person interviews. That's their proposal.
That's to be in person. Is it, interviews should be in person, I think.
Yeah, in
I know it's
person.
that.
Yeah, I'm guessing they would come up here for interviews, but they would do the rest of the work in the city.
Yeah.
That's what the.
Is there any merit to using an entity that's not local as opposed to the other two, which are law firms and local?
Is there, well, Guidepost outlined that they think that it's actually better to have somebody that's not local. They outlined that in their, knowing that the person, knowing that the company is completely disengaged from this situation because they're
Right,
not
not
local. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't really.
I was just putting this out there to the board.
Doreen, what is it that you like more about Guidepost? Could you just look in the thing over again? They have an extensive background,
I
but
like their investigations that they did. I know the other people also have experience investigating, but not like specific types of investigations. They're like, oh, well, we did sexual discrimination or employment discrimination or toxic environment, but they don't have specific environment that they did it in. And Guidepost had, we did a large school versus we did a large, I don't know, public. Because they said confidential, right? So you don't really know what they did, but you kind of get a sense. So I mean, that was impressive. Plus the resumes and their experience was impressive. Although the other people were equally as impressive in terms of their resumes. I just didn't get the experience from their proposals as much as I did from Guidepost. But it's not to say I couldn't be convinced with going to the other two. I don't have a preference that way.
I think you're pushing me more towards Guidepost now.
What's that?
I think you're pushing me more towards
I
Guidepost.
like the back.
I agree. I'm getting pushed more toward that
Yeah.
direction too.
I think a combination of attorneys and HR.
Yeah, I was-
be beneficial.
You're saying that you like that?
No, yeah, I mean, originally I was not indifferent, but I didn't have a strong feeling. But the more we discussed it,
I
I'm like,
just want to point out, if we hired Guidepost, we have to decide whether or not we hire them directly or we hire them through our council. And that's an important decision.
I mean, I obviously was advocating for HR, so like, I like this because it combines both what I would like to see as HR and the legal that other folks would like. There's nothing wrong with either of the other two firms that presented, but this is, in my opinion, they're gonna give us more of a wealth of information.
Yeah.
So are you concerned with the money then? It might be more expensive.
oh, yeah.
It's just the travel, but if they're saying a budget not to exceed 15,000 and then it's just gonna be the travel on top of that. I mean, some of the other ones, the Capeza was, saying estimated $6,000 for the interview and then unclear on the cost of the report, but the report could easily, based on, I could see that easily, the report plus the interviews together being more than 15,000. And so even with the travel costs, it's not necessarily gonna be, more expensive.
I guess I don't remember if they were charging for travel, like hourly rates for travel. I don't remember seeing that.
In Guidepost, there wasn't anything. I mean, I think we can also,
If
if
they're
we want to
charging for
hire them, we just approve hiring them pending determination of additional travel costs,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we also need to find out whether or not their travel costs, well, I assume for the 15,000, whether their travel costs is separate from their time in traveling.
Yeah,
That's what
it doesn't,
Their time in traveling should be included in the less than 15,000.
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
it says incurred travel
I would
expenses.
quibble about
That
money.
doesn't sound like billing for their time.
I don't
So-
think it is. So they're
Yeah.
either gonna work and bill somebody if it's
Yeah.
us, or
Yeah,
they
yeah.
will not be
Yeah.
collecting a
I
rate.
think if if we're in kind of a reasonable ballpark, it doesn't seem to me that any of these is gonna break the bank, and I would prefer to go with the entity we thought would do the best job. I don't see a difference of $2,000-3,000 as dispositive of the issue.
Yeah. All right, well, I'll make a motion that we go with Guidepost and just get that on the table. If anybody has any,
Is there a second for the motion?
Tony second.
Who left? I think Corey left, so we can't vote yet.
Yeah, but we can discuss further if there's,
So, we go with, Guideposts, would we be going to the attorney to do that?
Maybe
Going to them directly?
Yeah.
Or to see what's the plan here?
so, and this is just to, you know, I think when we had our initial meeting, after the first public comment session, it struck me that at least the initial kind of goal of the investigation or the understanding of the investigation, it seemed like many of the members of the board and the attorney were not seeing eye to eye on what the expectation was and what the investigation was going to, entail. So that makes me hesitant to go through the attorney unless we can, be 100% clear that they are on the same page as us on what we're looking for out of this.
But we give them the scope, right?
Yeah, but then why, why go through the attorney in the first place if we're going to have to kind of carefully define exactly how we want this to go and then go to the attorney who's going to then convey that to.
What is going through the attorney mean?
That's a good question.
We would be hiring through.
So they're gonna build something to us, right? I mean, that's basically.
So
it's
they
like-
would be
yeah.
hiring them?
Yeah, they
Who
would.
was responsible then for hiring this firm? If it's not the attorney. So who would?
If it's not the attorney, it would have to be a board member to be a contact person for Guidepost.
Yeah, which is,
It's,
that's,
that's a job.
that is, that's true too.
I don't think we can do that. I don't think we can do that. I don't think a board member can serve in
No,
that function.
I think
at
you're
all,
right.
Because they're going to be looking at board members. Now, the way I see using the attorney to hire Guidepost, if that is the decision of the board, that means to me only that whatever is produced by Guidepost is going to be protected because it is going to be the attorney that hires Guidepost. I don't think the attorney has, and we have to clarify it, any say in what Guidepost is going to say. All they do is hire. And that gives the board attorney, that gives attorney-client privilege with respect to whatever it is Guidepost produces.
Marcia, how does that address the question that Aaron told us about, that we have, before we hire somebody, we have to decide whether we want everything sort of exposed, or if they just want a summary report that doesn't lay out, we interviewed X, Y, and Z, and our determination is such. That was my understanding of Aaron.
Attorney?
Pardon?
Can't we discuss that with the attorney when
Well,
the board wants to hire this particular firm?
But she said some people wouldn't reply to our request because they didn't want to expose the names of the people
So.
that they had interviewed.
Guideposts, they have right in their discussion here that one of the issues that they'll consider is whether we want it to be public or private or whatever. That's like.
The library will be closing
You know,
in 15 minutes.
It's,
Right.
Have materials you'd
I
like to
think
take out.
obviously this is
Please
not a
bring them to
situation
the
where
checkout
like a
desk.
company is she's doing a purely internal investigation. Part of the whole purpose of this is to produce something public that we can put to the public. That was because, I mean, that's part of the whole purpose that, part of the purpose, the reason we're doing this is because there's so much public demand to know what's going on and get to the bottom of this. So, obviously we need a public report. I guess the question is, is it does that, if it's going to be made public, does that basically limit the kind of level of detail and things that can go into the facts and everything? So that we kind of will need to have a public facing and a more extensive private.
Well, could you redact names, like specific names out of a public report?
But Aaron addressed that in the email, that you can still context clues, understand who they are.
Yeah, I think, some stuff. Just in the executive session that I don't think we can mention publicly that might be confidential for us to consider certain things. And I think what she said to us was protected at that time, which is why I don't want to discuss it in public comment. But I think of hiring somebody, we can go through the attorney, and when we have the report, we are still the final decision maker as to, do we publish it all, do we redact names, or do we just give the people the findings? I think we still have, ways to go. Let's get the report back. It will be protected by attorney-client because it would be through the attorney. But once we have it, we can decide what we can release. I do want to say though, even if we hire them through the attorney, I do think that they still have to have a contact point, or the attorney would need a contact point with the board for whatever decisions need to be made. I guess that would be because.
I mean, I could have contact with the attorneys.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind doing that. I mean, I think that, the scope of the work, like you were saying, what could be publicly released would be,
I think that would.
something that we
all
would
of us.
determine once we get the report. I think you're right, because you can't determine what's going to be public released, on a report you don't have.
Right.
So-
Yeah,
So there's a motion on the floor to go with guidepost. And I would add that we were going to go through the our library attorney to hire guidepost on our behalf. That's the motion. I have Mike making a motion and Tony seconding. So if there is no further discussion about going with guidepost, I would ask that all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Was there anyone opposed to this? Okay, so we'll go with the guidepost and we'll go through our attorney.
For the purpose of the minute.
Excuse me, have we decided that we're going to use our attorney to hire guideposts? So there's attorney-client privilege, which can always be waived, by the way.
yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I think that's a sanguine decision. Now, I voted along with the rest of you, yes.
Great, so
Oh, yeah, I'll just follow it. Then they're right.
Are we gonna talk about the second part of the investigation?
Oh,
Okay, yeah, but just on that point, so what's Kathy, are you going to communicate to the attorney that we want to hire them or?
right, I will do that.
And do
Do we
we,
see a contract?
do we need
Mhm.
to do anything more to kind of define the scope of the investigation or was that well enough in the proposal?
I think it was the proposal. I mean, I can discuss with the attorney if we wanted to do anything else, but it sounds like it made sense to just decide on the scope of, and I think, FOIL requests, obviously, that's our thing, to do, and,
Oh, yeah.
and I don't know about the contracting process. I mean, I think we could probably, look at that, and if we probably, once we're done with all this, investigation, we would probably want to issue another RFP for, cafe services. I think, there may have been a little bit of, inquiry about that, so, I think we'd have to issue an RFP and, see what we see, what the response is.
In terms of the contract, I think since you said there's likely gonna be a special meeting in April, right?
Somebody
Should
said
we
that.
maybe get a contract from the attorney, hopefully for the special meeting to at least look at? And we could possibly look at it in April at the regular meeting.
I'll work on it.
So they wouldn't be able to
I-
begin until April then?
I mean, if we can see it and vote on it at the special meeting, and if we all agree, then we can do it sooner.
I mean.
The meeting for the budget, you mean?
No, she said there's likely gonna be a special meeting.
Because
To
of-
have-
to
yeah.
discuss the
Yeah,
budget,
to present the budget.
so,
But I mean, if we already have if they have they've given us the price here and they've got this scope of work, what else, what more would we need are we not able to approve?
We need a timetable. Whether we want it completed by May 1st or something like that, the investigation report.
Oh, that's very.
Yeah, it's just, as I look, it's, under their description here, it looks like one of the first steps they want to have is a meeting with the board to discuss the
Oh, yeah.
investigation, everything there. So the sooner we can get that going,
Mhm.
the better. So I don't want to have to wait another month before we get to that.
Right.
So
Their proposal was, I
Well-
felt, unless there's something crazy that comes up in the contract, as long as they follow this process, stick to those fees and go with this, what they defined in their scope.
Do you want to?
Okay, but wait, back up a minute. If we've decided that Guidepost is to be hired by our attorneys, they have to do a retainer letter back and forth before they even talk to us. From the beginning of the process, we need to have the relationship down pat. So if we are hiring, if we are not hiring Guidepost directly, but our attorneys are hiring Guidepost, they have to put together a retainer letter. And they should be able to do that very quickly.
Okay, so it wouldn't be us signing it, it would be.
Yeah, so I mean, can we just vote to authorize our council to retain Guidepost consistent with this proposal that they've presented?
Yes.
I think we did that.
Is that, yeah,
I mean, we-
hire them directly. Why do we have to?
well, because the issue is they're gonna need a point of contact. And so, they're gonna have to be, going through somebody.
That be Kathy?
It's
Well,
gonna,
I mean, I can't like directly hire this firm myself. I mean, it's
No, the
not,
board would authorize you to hire.
no, I don't think
No.
so. I think it's better to go through the attorney.
Yeah, we already
You
voted
know, I
that.
mean, I wouldn't know anything
I thought
about,
that's what we voted on. Isn't that
Yeah.
what we just voted on?
I mean.
And
we
you don't
voted-
want a board member to
Those
contact
are the
person because the
attorney.
board member is going to be interviewed.
So we've already voted.
But do we,
And I think that it's understood that we voted on the proposal that they made. I mean, like, I don't know, I don't think we have to say that specifically, but we're going through the attorney.
well, I think,
Well,
Mike, you said something.
I don't know, let's just, why don't we just to be crystal clear and to make sure everybody's on the same page, just to clarify that the motion is to authorize our attorney to retain guideposts consistent with this proposal that they presented to us.
Yes.
And just re-vote on that and everybody's okay and then there's no
It's a separate
question.
motion. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so that's,
So,
That
New
was-
motion.
that was-
Oh. your motion,
that's my motion. Is it second?
Sure, fine.
Mike and Tony. All right, let's revote. All in favor of the,
Library is closed.
of the, of the, redone motion?
But it's
Please
not a
say aye.
done motion. It's to authorize our attorney to enter into a contract with Guidepost consistent with their proposal. That's how I wrote it down for the
Right.
minutes.
Yeah, yeah. Is everybody,
Okay. All in favor?
I,
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, so the new motion is, goes at 7:55, okay. All right. Are we
When
done?
we do the
with that?
secondary.
Should we call, I don't
well,
think
are
we
we
need to discuss
discussing the secondary?
we're doing that internally, I think.
well, I don't think it's been formally decided the process or anything.
yeah, well, that's the question. And given that, you know, it was you know, there was a bunch of the public comments about that. And then also we have this FOIL request and there was a comment today about it. And this is, you know, I think I don't want to let this slip and not have anything happen with it. I'm not sure what's the right way
Well,
for us to go about it.
didn't we designate a FOIL officer? We did.
But that wasn't
right?
specifically about this.
Well, but FOIL is FOIL. So, you
No.
know, a FOIL officer does the FOIL
No, yeah,
request.
But this is not about a FOIL
It's about
request.
my
Yes,
point.
it is. There is a FOIL request.
Yes, there's a FOIL request. but
So that's,
The library is handling the FOIL request. That's being taken care of.
right.
The issue is that there's a lot of public concern and my point is, there's a FOIL request, so they're gonna be, you know, getting information and things are, you know, to the extent that there's concerns over the way it was done, that's gonna be an issue we need to address and we need to deal with. So
If it was over, what was done?
the contracting with the cafe, the
Oh,
process.
because it was outside of an RFP.
There
We
was an
don't
RFP.
know. We don't know if it was or if it
Yeah.
wasn't.
Well, there was an
We
RFP.
had a couple, yeah.
There were two RFPs as
Yeah.
far
There were
as we
two
know.
RFPs. Okay, so if it was part of an RFP, so that would be something we could determine on our own.
Normally, there's a process when somebody responds to an RFP that you get their response, that's on the public record. And then, you know, there are steps that usually happen. I don't know if they happened or if they didn't happen.
There have been various concerns related. I don't want to go through them all right now, but there's a number of different concerns that are all related to the whole process of it. And it includes construction that was done after the cafe was selected. It includes how the cafe was selected in the first place. It includes the terms of the contract, including the rent that was paid, all these like different aspects of it that public has raised concerns about. Some of that may be, you know, things that we can just look back at minutes and previous votes and figure out, but other things may involve more digging or more questions asked about exactly how all this happened. And so we need to figure out how that's going to happen. If we're going to do it internally, who's going to be responsible for it? What's the process? What's going to happen with that? So I don't have an answer of how we're going to do it, but there's a lot of questions have been raised. And hopefully, many of those questions will have very, simple answers, but some may not. And we need to figure out how we're going to get to the bottom of it.
I would recommend that we appoint an ad hoc task force that includes members of the staff and the board to decide the next steps with this and to start that piece. Because I think it's going to require people going like both ways, and we don't have like anything established in a process that's making us push forward with this.
And just a couple of things. I remember Vanessa talking at the last meeting that she's concerned that if we go too deeply investigating this, that we, and I hope I quote her right, that then we put all our decisions up to question mark, 20, what is it, like, retrovision is 2020, what's it saying?
Yeah, I'd say-
Hindsight, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, with the information that we were provided at the time, we made what we thought was the right decision. Later on, obviously, questions are asked, but I believe that Vanessa was saying we shouldn't question all our decisions, and starting with this might lead to questioning all our decisions in the future. That's one point I wanted to make. The second point I wanted to make is that I think our attorneys should do it. Though I think you had said that they were involved in this, or maybe not.
Some of this, there's questions about the legal advice we were given about the contract, and that's going to be part of the, what needs to be looked into. And so there's a little bit of a conflict on that. Questions about, so.
So are we going back to a third party then?
Or go back to.
I'm sorry, I had to step out. What are we discussing? I apologize. I had to step out.
We're-
This
we're-
second piece of the agenda.
Yeah, discussing how to go forward with the second part
The
of the.
library is closed.
Oh, the contractual arrangement? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I think maybe, Corey's suggestion may make sense to try and get this moving. And if that task force that gets set up decides that this is something that can't feasibly be done without somebody from the outside, then we can consider that. But maybe at least to get it rolling, that would be a way to get started on it.
I mean, because we do have.
I think that's a great idea because a lot of it is going to be looking at minutes, looking at emails, and looking at contracts.
Yeah.
So it's going to be like a reconstruction of documents.
And our FOIL officer has already prepared some of this information, so we already know that it's set and ready to go. So I am suggesting this and I am not volunteering for it, but,
What were you thinking in terms of the makeup of
I would
board
just say,
members and staff?
I would say like just 2 and 2 or something.
It's our responsibility.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 board members and 2 staff members?
You don't think, even though the staff's going to be providing all the paperwork and stuff?
Yeah, the admin obviously has to help us, but isn't this our responsibility? It's not admin, it's just a responsibility.
A
We're
lot of the
we're
work, you know,
overseers.
is buried in the library
Well,
records. It's not, and it's.
Isn't Nate already getting documentation?
This
to
is
get
a,
pursuant to
this is
FOIL?
a document search due diligence request that probably goes on without end, to tell you the truth, in terms of like reconstructing all the emails, who said what. I mean, I went through the stuff that's online for the construction project, and believe me, it's
Voluminous, isn't it?
voluminous, and it just doesn't answer all the questions, and so
Yeah. But I mean, as a start,
This is- I
isn't
did
Nate
the re-
doing this because of FOIL?
I think, is
Isn't Nate
Natalie, are
already
you
doing
doing
some of
most
this?
of the work on the, you're both doing it? Okay.
Well, we had a design committee during the construction that made decisions up to a certain financial level in committee, just because bringing every little thing to the board was just so time consuming. So the board had like a certain financial level had to be brought to the board, but smaller financial pieces could be authorized by the design committee. And that was just something that was going on during construction. And also the design committee picked out, I don't know, like carpets and lights and things like that. And, and it consisted of staff members and board members. And,
Right, no,
so that was, so what I'm saying is that authorizing small things was at one point, a committee was doing that. So I don't know. I don't recall whether that committee was still going on during the construction of the cafe,
Cafe
but
had
I
a separate
know.
one. Cafe had a cafe committee that did the same thing, but we're getting to the weeds again, so we need to go back.
Right,
We need
but,
to figure out-
what I'm saying is that we already had a number of committees that were looking at, the cafe situation. So,
But would that
Yeah.
committee have authorized the purchase of like restaurant equipment?
Yes, the cafe committee did, yes.
Who is remaining on the board that was on the cafe committee?
Myself.
You were-
Vanessa,
but there's
and I
two,
think-
you gotta put this in a timeline though.
That would just
There's
make any
only two
sense.
people that are on the board from, up until the decision came to bring in Cafe Conmel. Was you and Marcia, you were the only two.
Barbara,
existing-
she's been.
And Barbara, right.
No, I wasn't. Design
Oh, no, but
committee.
you've been on the board.
You were on the
Yeah.
board. And then at the time of July 2022, there was a whole bunch of new directors that came in.
21, myself,
was
Mike,
2021.
and Vanessa came in. We came on when they were doing the Cafe Carmel tasting and all that junk. Marina, sorry. Yeah, you were there too.
There was four of us.
There's four of us.
That all came on in 2021, so.
And I think
We're
we
gonna go
have
on track again though. We need to go back to figure out what our next steps are though. I mean, we could, the committee stuff, all that minutia, we figure out later. We need to move forward. I have to put my wife up at 11 o'clock at the airport, so it's gonna be done by 11 o'clock.
Isn't Nate getting a lot of this material pursuant to the FOIL request?
A lot of this is.
A lot of documents have been.
Nate
collected.
Navlier, yeah.
Yeah, so if all of these papers are gotten together, everything that's pertinent, the contracts, the emails, the board decisions, any committee decisions, everything's in one place and needs to be analyzed. A committee that's going to take a look at all this can decide whether or not, after all the papers are put together, whether or not we need, for instance, our law firm to give us a legal opinion about what happened, what was right, what was wrong. But we can do the gathering internally.
We have to. It's just who internally does what I think we're discussing, right?
Does anyone want to participate in this?
I don't know that it's, I'm thinking about it, and I haven't formulated it, I'm thinking of it, but I know that a separate committee would work.
We won't
because
get it accomplished if we try and do it through the whole board though, don't you think?
to
Like,
the whole- No, I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
saying the whole board, but we have all kind of been involved in the process in one way or another, and so we're just investigating decisions that were made at some point by one of us, at least one of us on a committee or as a board. So I just don't know if going back in a separate committee formulated with various other people is gonna satisfy this inquiry.
I think we have to. I think we need to know our mistakes. That way going forward, we don't repeat them. I mean, I've never put a cafe into a library before. So some of those authorizations of prices or costs or whatever, I was involved in. Shouldn't have done it. It happened. Going forward, won't happen again. But we need to know that. I think we have to.
I agree.
Right.
All I'm saying
Yeah.
is the paper gathering part could be done internally and then we can have a legal analysis after that.
I don't want their legal.
We.
They were involved
I
in the
agree.
contract.
It was a different attorney though.
It was a different attorney, but it was the same firm, and I have questions about at least some of the legal, I had questions at the time, and I still have questions about some of the legal advice we were given, so I would, if we're gonna get legal advice from anyone, I think it should be someone who is not conflicted and having been involved in the original process.
I did offer
I
an
agree.
input party investigation, the first part of it, to our attorneys. It was Cynthia Pfizer, I think. She's a Gilderland resident, but she's also an attorney. She has done a ethical investigation for the Albany County Ethics Commission. I
Where
believe.
she is with, is she?
I think she's a solo.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure. So she she didn't want to do this particular investigation, but we could possibly reach out to her about this one and say, hey, we'll do all the gathering, we'll give them to you. And all we need is your findings.
Yeah, so I think,
And it doesn't have to be her. I'm just saying like any other attorney or a third party.
I think probably, I think we should try and put together a little committee now that can take the FOIL documents, start kind of putting things together, figure out what the questions are, maybe present something to the board, about, okay, here's what we know, here's what we don't know, or here's questions we have, and then we can decide if we need to get,
Outside counsel. Right.
outside counsel to review something or give us
Yeah,
an opinion or.
Yeah,
Are you
but we
volunteering?
need internally to get all the paperwork together, all the documentation.
I'll do
together.
it with, if, I don't know if we want to do an ad hoc, committee on this, I'll be on it. I don't know who else wants to, but the other volunteers.
Mike, I'll help you out on this.
Yeah, and
Hey,
I,
just to get
Mike
focused
and
on
Bill,
what the request is gonna be.
I would volunteer with the understanding that I have a, serious family issue, but I can try to do what I can.
Yeah, 14.
So we have Marcia, Barbara, Bill, and Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, so
I'm tapped out at the moment, so thank you.
I'm gonna have to get off and I will dial into the executive session as soon as I can. I'm sorry.
Okay, Martha.
You can come back in if you
Okay.
have On the other one, what the executive
Yeah,
session?
executive session's a different number. I have to speak with the nurse. I'm sorry.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
We need to vote to form this committee or,
Probably.
okay, and then I'll go.
I
with
vote yes. I vote yes. I'm hanging up
Thank
now. Okay,
you.
I'm sorry.
Well, who's making the motion?
I'll move that we form an ad hoc committee to investigate, do we even need to say no?
I'll second.
Second by Marina.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say, like, I don't want you to feel like I'm not volunteering, but I have a lot going on in my life right now, and I wouldn't be able to devote the full time to this that it needs. I really would like to do it. So, I mean, I'm sure you're sending out the emails about the meetings if you're meeting, and so I'll try to be at a meeting. So thank you for taking it on.
So right now we, Marcia, Barbara, Bill, and Mike on the committee. So, we have a motion and a second. Should we wait till they come back?
Who's left?
Corey.
Well, Corey made the motion, so she's in favor.
Yeah, oh, yeah, at least you can't vote.
So we can vote.
So,
All in favor?
Aye.
Marcia voted too.
Marcia voted yes, and Corey, I'm sure, is voting yes.
Okay, so passes 8-10.
Not as you voted for yet.
Yeah. We just voted.
Understanding on this is that I think a lot of the information is gonna come out of the library records and things. Library staff and
Gonna be a lot of-
back to the 2019.
Well, I would just, as a, just an initial thing, just anything that's been collected for the FOIL request,
Yeah.
pass it on to the committee, and then we'll start there and see what else we need beyond that.
There's definitely a lot already collected, but I would tell you, this has been incredibly labor intensive to get these things, and we have to run a library.
Yeah.
So it's
No, understood, but
a lot.
yeah.
So if there are things that this committee can do, like looking at your own documents, looking at your own minutes, looking at that kind of stuff, I would very much appreciate it if you did your own digging in that area. When it comes to internal records, obviously you got to talk to me and our staff to get that stuff, so, you know, be in touch.
Well, one thing that surfaced today that I wasn't aware of, the design committee, if we have any of those minutes. So apparently some of the expenditures went through that.
I have a ton of minutes for that. I think I summarized all of them. In very detailed fashion. So I'm not quite sure when that committee stopped being relevant. I think at some point when the construction was coming to an end, I think the design committee also ended. So I'm not sure of the date. I could look it up. You know, I have a whole bunch of stuff on that, so I'll look it up. If it's,
Yeah, if you have that stuff in your files, it'll save them from looking it up.
Oh, yeah, I have a lot of notes. Okay, so we formed our ad hoc committee to investigate the contract, yes, oil or something like that. Documents, document investigation and review. So I think we're on to new business. The only thing I had for new business was not actually on the agenda was, as you all know, Ted Guff resigned recently, and I think we need to accept his resignation. So that's, so is there a motion to accept, the resignation of, Ted Guff? Alish, second?
Second.
Mike. All right, any discussion? I would just say that, I'm disappointed that someone actually resigned since we went back in person. We had so many resignations when we were, you probably remember how many resignations there were when we were virtual. Just like multiple resignations in per meeting, so
Well, we did have a slew of resignations in short, quick succession after we originally first came back from virtual also. There was that time period where we had like 3 resignations for 2 months. So that was
Oh, yeah, but that
our
was,
former president and vice president. One
but
after
that
the
was,
other.
that was, yeah, I know, I was on vacation at that time too.
But yeah,
I have bad timing. So anyway, so we had a motion and a second to accept the resignation of Ted Gupp. All in favor?
No, can I just say, I, as well as you, I guess, are really saddened that he's chosen this route. I consider him an extremely valuable member, of the board. He asked tough questions, some of which a lot of people didn't like, but I respected him for that. And I just wish that he had not taken the route that he took. Because I think, he had a lot of information and value in his past experience as a reporter. Basically looking for transparency and feeling very frustrated that he didn't feel, I think, that, we were able to provide that. So I know it's standard just to vote yes to accept resignations, but in this case, I have to sort of be a dissenting no, because I really think that he brought a lot to the board that we're gonna miss.
Well, if one of my kids was on the board, they would ask the same sort of questions because they're both journalists, and I think it's in the nature of journalism to not just accept the status quo and to ask questions. And so I know that very well just because of my family. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that he was a valued member of the board, and it's disappointing that he just determined that he wanted to resign. So I mean, he's already resigned. So I mean, all in favor of accepting reluctantly as it is, or Ted's resignation, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And I know you were dissenting. Any other dissents? Right. So we have a motion that is passing with 1 dissent. 17. All right. Okay, is there any other new business that anyone has? So is there anything for public input session number 2?
I don't have any other public input.
Okay,
Motion to go into executive session?
yes, we have need of an executive session to discuss personnel related to the potential hiring of a permanent director of the library. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
Motions.
Norina
second.
and Mike. All in favor of entering into executive session?
Aye.
Dissenting? All right, we are in executive session, so to clear the room. And,
Thanks for coming.
Or last.
let's bring it down.
No, one more day.
So,
You didn't have right in that.
All right.
All of
so the proposals that